Welcome into Boxing Scene Today. I'm Chris Algieri, and of course, I'm here with former two-time boxing world champion and soon-to-be bare-knuckle world champion. Right, champ?
That's the plan.
Paulie the Magic Man Malignaggi. We're here talking top stories here on Boxing Scene Today. And of course, we got to talk about last night. We had Zuffa Boxing, the fourth event of the year, and Jai Opetaia versus Brandon Glanton. Jai Opetaia dominated. He won 119, 106 across the board on all three judges' scorecards. So I guess first of all, before we get into any of the nitty-gritty, how did you feel both guys performed? How did Jai look? Is that really what you expected from Brandon? I mean, what did you think of the fight itself?
First of all, champ, we had Glanton on before at ProBox TV, right? We've had him on. So we had a bit of an idea. It seemed like going into the fight that a lot of people weren't really too much aware of Glanton. It's all the talk was about Opetaia's power and, if he lands that big shot. I felt like even the commentating was sort of referring to that. It's just a competitive fight until he lands a big shot or whatnot. Ultimately, the fight wasn't competitive. Jai landed plenty of big shots, but we knew Glanton here at ProBox. We've had him on ProBox before, and we knew he's durable. He's a physical guy. He can punch a little bit, so he'll keep you honest even if you're a dominant. And that's sort of what Opetaia did. But I felt, here's the thing. I was discussing before the fight here on the show and talking about, I don't know if this is the fight where you want to really showcase Opetaia if you're Zuffa as your new signing, because this is not the fight where he's going to look as destructive as maybe some other fights. But, in watching the fight, there was some things to take out of it. There's a lot of good boxing Opetaia's doing, a lot of sharp pot shots mixed in with some hard shots that he's throwing in there. Good shot selection, good punch selection. There's a lot of pros you can take out of the fight going the distance, which is was sort of an expectation for me.
We spoke about that last week. You and I both said that we expected this actually to go the distance. Even though everyone was saying that Opetaia was probably going to stop him or was going to run through him. Like you said, the commentary, until he lands that shot. Well, he landed that shot throughout the night. And Glanton walked through mostly everything. Didn't really get hurt or stunned until late in the fight. And as I was watching the fight, and I agree with you. I think Glanton did pretty much what I expected. Big, durable, athletic, strong, good conditioning, but ultimately outgunned.
He's got one gear.
One gear. Yeah,
it's a tough gear, but it's one gear.
Yeah. And he can punch, which, like you said, that's what I think actually kept him in the fight as well. On top of being durable, you can't just sit there and take shots. I don't care. Opetaia is such a dynamic guy. He's going to find those holes, and he did. But Glanton hit hard enough and was dangerous enough that, if you notice,
was live enough.
Jai didn't really stand still. He didn't try and walk Glanton down because the power was there. But ultimately, I think I saw the fight leave Glanton, like the winning spirit, leave him in round 10. Yeah. And I was like, all right, maybe he gets the stoppage here, maybe not. But
I was going to say that. I was going to say early in the fight, I felt like Glanton was cutting off the ring decently well because Opetaia was moving, using the ring, boxing off that athleticism. You noticed Andre Durrell in Glanton's corner, and they said the commentary team was bringing up that they brought him in for the footwork, specifically for the footwork. And
not a bad move, you think about the way
it wasn't.
Opetaia
And
fights.
I'll tell you, Glanton's footwork early on, I felt like wasn't so bad. He was actually cutting off Jai. He wasn't beating Jai to the punch, don't get me wrong. Jai was moving and shooting very well, but I felt like at least there was mental pressure there where he was able to cut off the ring and stay in Jai's face and, kind of keep Jai thinking a little bit. But like you said, the fighting spirit leaves you. Even about halfway through the fight, Jai is not as bouncy in spots. He's stopping in more spots to fire off some good shots and then still moving. But when he's moving, Glanton's not as excited to go cut him off. He's not as excited to go, let me stay in his face and apply this mental pressure. He kept going to him the whole way, and that's what I mean about Glanton's one gear. He's going to just keep going. He's got a one-track mind is that he's going to come forward. He's not going to really use throwaway punches or anything to set things up, and he's going to keep trying to, have that high guard. Not really a jab. I mean, then again, it's hard to jab against a southpaw to begin with, but
also,
not really a jab.
When there's a speed differential like that, the jab almost can hinder you because
you're
leaving
get
openings. You're giving openings for a guy who can see you coming, and he's longer. He's more athletic. And to my point, I said this last week because we were saying, is this the kind of opponent that you want that will go have a destructive performance? No, but we're going to get to see a lot of Jai. We got 12 rounds of him, seeing how dynamic he is, how athletic he is, and his conditioning, something that has plagued him in the past. Not a problem last night.
No,
we saw him in the Bradis fight, both fights actually. The first one, obviously, he broke his jaw. Of course, you're gonna fade some late, but even in the second fight, in which he was really in control, he started to fade late, and Bradis was coming on. Bradis is a big puncher and very, very experienced guy. This fight was different. Whether it was because Glanton didn't have that gear and isn't really as good as Bradis, maybe that's it, or maybe Opetaia has turned a corner in terms of his condition.
Probably a little bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both. Probably a little column A, a little column B.
I'll tell you, when you're Opetaia and you have a guy coming at you the whole fight, it keeps you honest, keeps you working, but also it's one speed. So and when you're a good boxer like Opetaia, you start to get the timing of that one speed better and better each and every round. As a matter of fact, as the fight wore on, if this was, say, a 15-rounder, who knows? Maybe Opetaia might get the stoppage. You know, he hurt Glanton pretty good in the 12th round.
Yeah, he did.
Glanton got through it.
A couple rounds, yeah.
But you know, there was, if, say, it's a old school 15-rounder, maybe Opetaia does break him down enough to stop him, because the shots will eventually going to break you little by little. You can only take so many.
It's funny you say that, because Glanton strikes me as kind of a throwback fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that kind of like come forward, you know, beat you up, bang you around.
Honest, like lunch pail kind of guy, you know?
Yeah,
like,
bring your lunch to work. Yeah, bring your lunch to work.
And honest night's work. And that's what he was going to do. But like I said, it gave us a chance to see different wrinkles in Opetaia's style. I don't know if that was the intent for Zuffa to, you know, we were talking about, the rollout was going to be that he's going to keep looking destructive the way he's looked. Yeah. But there's still, maybe the intent could be that, hey, we wanted to show Opetaia's repertoire, boxing repertoire. He's not just a puncher. What you have here now is a conversation to really delve into for the rest of the cruiserweight division. What does he do? Where does he go? Is it possible to corner the market in the cruiserweight division? Because we know he did have to vacate the IBF title.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a little bit.
We'll get that in a little bit, but even the move to heavyweight, you know,
I want to get to that too.
Where do you see Jai based on what you saw yesterday? Because we did see him against a big physical cruiserweight yesterday. You know, remember Glanton's previous fight was against former light heavyweight contender Marcus Brown, right? Yeah. And so Glanton looked the big, he looked the part, but that was against a light heavyweight / cruiserweight
who has not been active. Yeah, that has had a lot of out of the ring troubles.
But Opetaia is a cruiserweight / heavyweight. He's never going to be a light heavyweight, but he's going to probably move to heavyweight. And during the broadcast, they were talking about how he was saying to them during the week that he will move to heavyweight. So there are things I think that you can look at in yesterday's fight, how dominant he was, how great of a boxer he looked, and say, okay, you know, the things that may have bothered him, the things that, because not a lot looked like it bothered him, but there are some things you can maybe pick at and say,
nitpick,
and then say, okay, what against the heavyweight, what does this look like? I think Jai has solid power and snap on his punches and boxing ability. Does he have the power to get the respect of a heavyweight?
See,
and then
now you're leading exactly where I was going. I think this performance actually presented more questions about Jai than actual answers. And that stems from the fact that he's fighting a better opposition. I only ask you, do you agree? I think Glanton is better than a bunch of the guys that he's fought recently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And along that same vein, I think
possibly an old Bradis is the best one he's fought.
100%. And because Bradis is excellent, even older. A 39-year-old Bradis is better than most cruisers in the world today. But Glanton really is a top 15 guy. Yeah. I know the Ring magazine put him at number 10.
Well, because the cruiserweight tends to not be that deep.
Yes,
you know, also
exactly.
Cruiserweight tends to not be that deep.
It never really is. But now we see him against a guy who is better than the opposition he has. And he had all those destructive performances where he's got highlight reel knockout over and over and over again. But he's fighting guys you never heard of. They have glistening records, 12-0, 15-0, 17-0, 9-0, all these guys that he's able to thrash, but nobody knows who they are. Now he fights a guy that's actually on people's radar. We've seen him. We've called him on ProBox TV. He's been in some big fights. He fought Chris Billiam Smith in a very tough fight. We're seeing him step up in class, and now we're not seeing that destructive force. My question is, what I think you were going exactly is, how does this guy transition to heavyweight? Does he have the pop? Is he going to have to be a mover at heavyweight? Is he going to have to be a guy, because he moved all night. Yeah. He had good lateral movement. He showed good combination punching. Wasn't really like stern or consistent with the jab, which he may need at heavyweight. But is he going to have enough power and pop to respect if he's not cutting weight? Because from what I understand, Opetaia does cut weight.
Yeah, and also the physicality, right? Yes. Glanton physically, okay, Jai hung in there in the clinches with Glanton, even created the openings, put the shots in there, but he was still being backed up physically by Glanton. Now, that's a big cruiserweight, but it's still a cruiserweight. What happens when you're up against heavyweights? Your punching power isn't discouraging a guy from coming forward, because Glanton took some shots. Yes, he did feel them. He even got hurt at times, but kept coming forward and was able to be physical on the inside. Now you put that against...
Was deterred from winning, but not deterred from
being physical and looking
anymore.
for it. Yeah. And there's bigger heavyweights there. There's much bigger heavyweights.
And who are fast.
And who are faster. Change speeds better than Glanton, or doesn't change speeds at all. And also are physically will maul you better, maul you more, you know. Again, Opetaia's boxing skills, I think, can transcend into the heavyweight division. I'm not sure his power will, although at times it might, and I'm not sure his the physicality will as well. Think about it like this, right?
But can you blame the weight on that? Because if he's restricting himself to come down,
I mean, we'll
he's
find
a big
out.
guy.
He's gonna probably put on some muscle when he moves up to the heavyweight division. You know,
I mean, every cruiserweight who's ever transitioned has always done that. If you look at Usyk, he put on a good amount of muscle, not too much. Holyfield also he packed on the mass.
But I look at the trajectory of Usyk, right? You look at Usyk as probably the best cruiserweight turn heavyweight, with respect of Holyfield. Some people may say it's Holyfield. Either way, you got those are the two. Remember Usyk's first fight at heavyweight? He fought a physical guy like Chisora, and remember early in that fight, Chisora was trying to really impose himself physically, and he did for a few rounds before Usyk got over the hump, and ever since then he's been a pretty dominant heavyweight. But that getting your feet wet into the heavyweight division for a few rounds against a physical guy like Chisora, it gave him some trouble if people remember that fight.
And then he struggled with Witherspoon a bit too.
Yeah,
and that he was I believe he was a last minute replacement as well. Yeah. So it looked early on like the size was going to be an issue for Usyk.
So when you think of it like that, Usyk probably, to me, came from the most competitive cruiserweight division and was able to dominate it. Yeah. That's why I think he was such a good heavyweight. And that, again, with respect to Holyfield, who had Dwight Muhammad Qawi, was a very big test for him. And I think that was a fight that made him a better fighter. But the other guys like Carlos De Leon and the other guys he won unified against were good, but they weren't at Holyfield's level at all. No. Qawi really tested Holyfield in the first fight. And I think Usyk also
only in the first fight because he blasted him out in the second.
Yeah, and I think Usyk was also tested a lot in the cruiserweight tournament, the World Boxing Super Series.
I feel like he had harder fights there than he did at heavyweight.
Yeah, the Gassiev fight, he had to be Bradis as well, right?
Yes, that was a very close fight.
So and Gassiev in the final, Gassiev had been mowing everybody down. Great down, he dominated Gassiev, but Gassiev, Gassiev was really, really destructive. I thought Gassiev was going to win that tournament. When I remember watching it in real time. So for Usyk to come off dominating that kind of cruiserweight division and go into the heavyweight division, even he had some growing pains in the heavyweight division in those first fights, and that's what I'm saying here. I think if you're not going to be able to get the unifications for Jai, which you're probably not because you're going to have to vacate all these titles, right? They're talking about Mikhailian now. He may have to, obviously, if the Mikhailian fight happens, you probably have to vacate the WBC title.
Wait, let's get into that now. So you mentioned titles. You mentioned Mikhailian, who's another titleist in the weight class. We've of course, everyone's talking about Zurdo Ramirez. He's actually fighting David Benavidez now. That was a fight that everybody's looking for. IBF chooses to strip Jai Opetaia prior to this fight. Meanwhile, sanctioning fee was paid. They sent representatives to the event. The belt was on stage with Opetaia. He did carry it around. He did seem like he cared about the belt.
So did Zuffa allow him to keep it, or was it one of those things that the IBF basically said, no, Zuffa said they're going to get rid of the sanctioning body, so we don't want to work with them? Was it one of those?
The messaging is a little muddled because as initially we all heard that it was basically Zuffa versus all the other governing bodies. They're not going to allow the other titleists. But then there's the signing of Jai Opetaia, who's a current world champion and a guy who's has said multiple times that he wants to be undisputed. So they said Jai is going to, this is a title that came out, Jai is going to be able to fight for other titles. Then, as we get closer, we're starting to see that there's going to be less and less representation of the governing bodies, the older belts, the old guard, and the Zuffa belt has been presented, and that's now really the belt that's on display, and really what Jai is fighting for. That and the Ring Magazine belt. Okay. IBF takes a stand early in last week and says if he fights for the Zuffa belt, then he can't fight for our belt. It will not sanction.
Even though Zuffa may have been willing to let the IBF slide.
It does seem like that. It does seem like they were willing to have it there. Because it was on stage. He was in the ring.
Well, I'll tell you this. The IBF probably took a page out of Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, who thought they were going to work with Turki Al-Sheikh and do the Riyadh season and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, it wound up being a Trojan horse. He winds up going on the TKO side and going on the opposite side of them and competing against them. But he used them to sort of come into the boxing business. Do the Zuffa guys?
It's because they're cutting them off at the pass. They're saying, all right, well, eventually they're gonna phase us out. Well, I'm gonna phase you out now.
Well, that's what Turkey did with Eddie and Frank. He came. He used them to bring him in, and then he phased them out.
No, I'm saying the other way around. I'm saying IBF actually is trying to phase out.
But it's the same thing. Zuffa's offering, I'm going to work with you guys. But in reality, they've said in the past they don't want to work with them.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? Then I'm going to phase them out, which was the plan the whole time. I think Zuffa showed their hand too early by saying they're going to phase them out. They should have just phased. If that was your intent, you should just phase them out to begin with. Because now the cat's out of the bag.
Right.
And everybody already saw the way Turkey behaved with Eddie and Frank, and that he used them and then phased them out.
But if you remember, there's been a lot of clawbacks by things that have been said. You know, Turkey's gone out and said some things, and then Dana would have to like answer them and be like, no, we're not doing that just yet. So there's been a little bit of clawing back in those situations, and there has been acquiescence in terms of rules.
Okay,
like for example, the Cruiserweight division, that was not supposed to be one of their divisions.
No, of course. Now but then you get Jai, and
then you get Jai, and you're like, okay, we got to make a Cruiserweight division. Also, we're not doing the belts, but then Jai's world champion. All right, you can do the belt. So there has been.
But in your opinion, based on the way they've moved, and based on the way General Dana moves in the UFC, and so on and so forth.
100%.
Yeah, they would have phased it out anyway.
They're playing nice.
So is the IBF wrong? No.
Well, that's so that was going to be my next question. Is the IBF actually drawing this line in the sand to fight for its own relevancy and livelihood, or is it doing it for the health of the sport in general to maintain governing bodies? and I know there's no altruism ever, and there's definitely no altruism in boxing. But is the IBF doing this on behalf of the sport or just their own livelihood?
I mean, you can take your pick.
It's kind of both, either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost is about their own survival and the fact that, you know, you've basically drawn your line in the sand by saying you're not going to work with sanctioning bodies. So it's like, okay, these guys have a plan for this, even if they are willing to, you know, go back and forth and work with us. Their ultimate plan, they've sort of shown their hand. That was what I mean about maybe Zuffa shouldn't have shown their hand so fast when they said, oh, we're not going to work with any of the sanctioning bodies. We're going to make our own belt. You know, they could have left it up to the curiosity of people. Are these guys going to work with everybody or not? You know, like, because it would have still been a curiosity, but hey, nobody would have known. But they announced it pretty quickly. So
then if you're the governing bodies, do you play
showing
nice
your
while
hand,
the time
essentially.
being? But that's what I mean. So if you're the governing bodies, do you play nice for the time being? Or you do what the IBF did and go, oh, you drew a line in the sand, you tipped your hand?
I think
this is where we stand.
I think the lesson is Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn.
Yeah.
They played nice and got burned.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why Zuffa likely should not have shown their hand, because the hand has kind of already been, the end of the way the hand plays has already been seen in the way Eddie and Frank got done there. You know, so I think the IBF probably noticing this says, nah, you know what, this is we already know how this ends. Let's cut it right now and go this way. Now here's the thing. Here's another thing to think about, champ. The Cruiserweight division is the least deep of any divisions in boxing typically. So
easiest,
like you said,
it's
it's probably where the Zuffa's being smart, and let's start at Cruiserweight.
Cheaper.
Here's the thing.
Easier access.
If you get all the champions at Cruiserweight, you leave the sanctioning body belts with some second and third tier level champions.
Yeah.
Because it's typically not that many good cruiserweights in most generations. So if Zuffa to corner the market at cruiserweight won't cost as much, nor will it take as much time as it would to do it in other weight classes. Now, if Zuffa grabbed the top cruiserweights, which let's face it, there aren't that many.
5 guys.
Yeah. Mikhailian is one who's not occupied because Benavidez and Zurdo are going to fight each other, right? So you have Mikhailian, who's being rumored to be possibly the next opponent. So if you, that's what we're talking about, 4 or 5 guys. So if you eliminate those 4 or 5 guys and bring them into the Zuffa circle,
you won.
Who becomes the WBO, WBA, WBC, and IBF champion? You didn't win. You won a cruiserweight. But what I'm saying is, there's nobody. The sanctioning body world champions of cruiserweight become like your second tier level fighters.
But that's why. Then nobody's going to care about those guys. You're going to watch subpar guys fighting for belts. And then it makes the belts seem that less important. And that's by
Devil's
design.
Advocate.
Very smart.
Devil's advocate. Does anybody watch the cruiserweight division anyway?
No. But that's
but
it'll be the first example
of
them being like, look at these belts, look at the guys who are fighting. Our guys will wipe the floor with them. It's similar to how the UFC model did
in
with
the cruiserweight division.
We will wipe the floor. Your best guy can't touch our best guy. You can't hold down
right
best guy's
now.
job.
I mean, that's another question, right? Is Jai Opetaia the best cruiserweight in the world? I think he is.
All right, so now you're leading me. You're leading my question. So my next question was based on this.
He was before yesterday night.
And this was a narrative and a talking point that was pushed in the post-fight interview with Max and Jai, which is funny because it seemed like they were having 2 different conversations because Max was saying certain things and Jai Opetaia was still talking about belts. But Max said that he's the best cruiserweight in the world, which he is. But he was saying, you're already undisputed. You can't. Can you say that until you fight the other guys?
Max has been doing a lot of making up, inventing storylines lately. You know?
We're on the same page. I was hoping you weren't going to give me pushback on that because you can't call a guy undisputed when there's other guys in the division who, one, have belts, but whatever belts are one thing.
Now, you can make him you can make him the favorite against those guys if he fought them. I think Jai would be favored against any of those guys.
But you got to fight Zurdo, dude. You got to fight Zurdo.
Yeah, Zurdo might get his butt beat by Benavidez.
But then you got to fight Benavidez.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, listen, Jai...
Which both styles, after what I saw last night, I think will give him trouble.
Yeah, but both guys are former 168s. So do they deal with the power? Remember, you got to keep in mind one thing that might get away from everybody from last night. The way Glanton took the power doesn't mean another cruiserweight will take that kind of power. Glanton is a very durable guy. We knew going in Glanton was a very durable guy.
I believe he was also
most guys are not going to be that durable.
He was a football player.
Yeah, lineman. He was a defensive lineman in the NFL. I mean, not the NFL, in college football. But regardless, we've seen most cruiserweights the way they don't take Jai's power. Jai cruiserweight is a strong guy.
Yes.
Glanton is the kind of guy who he's like a Ray Mercer, a cruiserweight. You know what I mean? He take those shots. He's going to take those punches. Poor man's Ray Mercer.
He hasn't fought, and that was my point earlier.
But Glanton's neck is like a truck. You knew he was going to take a good punch.
What about Bradis? He went 24 rounds with Bradis, who was 39. Bradis is very good. But he hit Bradis too.
And he hits hard. Bradis hits hard.
So
those guys are super middleweights. I'm just telling you, Zurdo, big as he is, was 168. Benavidez was 168.
The trouble with cruiserweight and the way that we've been talking about, there's such a gap between the top guys, which are the top tier guys is 5 or 6 guys, and then the next grouping of guys is a big precipitous drop.
That's what I've been telling you.
Which is why he was starching all those guys that he was fighting who weren't top 10 guys. Now we enter the top 10. Now we have to see him box more. Now we're not seeing the physicality quite the same. So that makes me think. After watching last night, I was like, I got to watch Zurdo. I got to see Zurdo in him. I got to see Benavidez in him.
You know what
I agree with you. I think Benavidez is going to beat Zurdo. I'm putting out my thoughts early on. I just think that Benavidez does most of the things that Zurdo does just better. Faster hands.
And they're both at 168.
Both former 68s. But David Benavidez used to walk around like 280 pounds.
Why, Zurdo no?
I mean, Zurdo still does. I mean, not quite that high. But Zurdo's a guy who walks around in the 220s heavyweight, and he's even talked about going to heavyweight one day too. So even though he used to be 68, I don't know. They were young. They were really young. They've grown into their bodies. And listen, Chris Smith, he's top-notch. He is a very good cruiserweight. He's one of those guys in the top 5 that I was talking about earlier. He's big, he's strong, he can punch, he's durable as hell. That fight with Zurdo was really impressive to me. I thought Zurdo looked really good that night against a top flight guy, and basically just ran him over with consistency and volume and power punching and body shots. It looked like he was going to stop him, and Chris Smith is very hard to stop. So after watching him last night, and I'm not saying he struggled because he didn't struggle. He won every second of every round.
But there's things that show
but there are things that show
gaps in his style that may be able to be
in.
inserted by a good fighter. Yeah.
So I can't sit there and go, yes, he is the undisputed cruiserweight, even if he doesn't have the belts. You got to fight those guys.
When do we say anybody's undisputed unless they have all the belts? First of all,
Max
you never say that. I don't care what Max said. You never say that. Nobody's undisputed until they have all the belts. I'm sorry, that doesn't mean anything. But you unless it was back in the one belt era without you were undisputed just having the world title. That doesn't exist. The undisputed without having the belt. So you can't just invent things. This isn't Disney World. You know?
Well, you see what they're doing. They're trying to say that if you have the ring belt, then you are the best.
Yeah, I hear you. That and $3 get you on the subway. But in reality, Jai is the best for me because he's the best cruiserweight in the world, not because he has the ring belt. Now, doesn't mean you don't want to see these guys fight. That's a problem that you bring from MMA into boxing, where the line is drawn so much in the sand that now guys can't fight one another outside of promotional boundaries. In boxing, it's always happened. It just sometimes gets complicated, but it happens if it's big enough. In MMA, it can never happen at all. So if you bring that problem into boxing, you're gonna start talking invented narratives like Max was last night.
What do you mean bring that problem? They're bringing that entire methodology. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the rolling out of the UFC methodology.
Unless you're able to get all of the talent, okay? Unless you're able to get all of the talent.
Which, according to Dana White in the post-fight press conference, he said, I'm signing absolutely everybody.
Okay.
And it was brought up about guys like Shakur Stevenson.
I mean, I got to be honest with you.
Garcia,
signing guys like Conor Benn to fight for Regis Prograis for $15 million isn't exactly going to be a long-term, isn't exactly a successful long-term play. That's a guy who's never going to become a world champion against a guy who's so shot that I would beat him right now, Regis Prograis. So I don't know what kind of play that is. in terms of long-term methodology, because if you're spending $15 million a clip on
Yeah.
things like that, you know,
Well, let's not get too off course with Opetaia and the Cruiserweight division. Now let's talk about how Opetaia did you listen to the post-fight interview in the ring with Opetaia?
No.
Oh, okay. So very interesting the way what Max was selling. That's when the Undisputed thing came out. But also, it seemed like they're having two different conversations because Kellerman was talking about the Zuffa belt and how this was such a big deal and that he was already undisputed, that he is the best cruiserweight in the world. Which, yes, I think he is the best cruiserweight in the world. I think we're in agreement there as well. But Jai kept talking about belts. Jai kept talking about the other fighters, the other champions in the weight class.
Well,
so
Jai's
for him as a
he
fighter, he not only does he not feel like he's undisputed till he fights those guys because he's a fighter, just like you and I. We're not going to be. I'm not going to think I'm the best if I don't beat the guys.
What about that he's not undisputed unless he fights those guys? I mean, it's not. It's not about feeling. Feelings don't even matter. You're actually not undisputed unless you have all the belts.
That's entirely his mindset because that is what the definition is. So you
can feel, even if you do feel undisputed, if you don't have all the belts, you're still not undisputed. Just feeling anything doesn't mean absolutely anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. Go ahead.
So
including what Max feels about Jai being undisputed. It doesn't matter what Max feels. That's not the way it is. Reality and what you want to be reality can be two different things.
So that brings me to this next question. How important was it last night becoming the first Zuffa champion in this current New World Order that's being unveiled? How important is that?
I think right now. I think it has a relevance for Zuffa because they do have the guy who's looked at as the top cruiserweight in the world. But remember, just like the problem you have in other weight classes, when you have guys who are good, who are very good, you have a guy who you feel is the best, but then you still want to see if they are the best. You want to see them match up against the other top guys. You know, like with Roy Jones before he was the undisputed champion at light heavyweight, for example. You know, like you wanted to see him take on everybody first. You felt he was the best, but I want to see him beat these guys. I want to see how he beats these guys. I want to see, you know, if there's a flaw there when he fights higher level opposition. You know,
nobody's perfect. People get
nobody's perfect. But what I'm saying is, you can.
But that's my point.
You can have the opinion of being the best, and then you can cement it. And the only way you cement it is you got to fight the other best guys in the weight class. It's the only way you do it. I'm sorry. It's the only way it happens.
And that's the point of this conversation right now is you can never forget that. You can't make paper champions. Guys have to fight. Guys have to be in competition with other guys that are around them because it's the only way we're going to
think about the Four Kings era, right?
They all fought each other.
And they all fought each other. I still have a big gripe that nobody fought McCallum, but that's a different thing.
Well, a lot of people would also say about Aaron Pryor was a guy who should have been in there as well. Another guy that was...
McCallum was at 154. At least Pryor was at 140 where they weren't anymore. At least McCallum was in the weight classes. That was crazy. I like everybody makes like they all fought each other and they didn't fight McCallum. But regardless...
Duran basically jumped from 35 to 47.
Regardless, though, Leonard is the one that has a win over all of them.
Yeah.
Okay? So he's regarded as the king of the Four Kings, right? The main king of the Four Kings. Bro.
Is he though? I feel like we kind of like... I feel like we
anoint them. Yeah,
yeah, we've anointed them all. Like I don't think. Leonard
has a win over.
Yes, I think if you go by nuts and bolts, yes,
he's the only one that won against all of them. Even though the Hagler fight is controversial in some eyes, he's the only one that has a win over each of the other ones. But you needed that. Imagine you don't have that.
No,
imagine you don't actually have a Four Kings.
It's the problem we're having right now. We've had opportunities to have Four King eras currently.
What I'm saying is, what if we would have took the Max Kellerman route with Ray Leonard? And they don't. He just doesn't fight the rest of the guys.
Which is why
he's undisputed. What?
All right, Champ.
What does that even mean?
We are here discussing this, and we're gonna go shoot to break for a little bit and make sure we got our ducks in a row. We're gonna get too heated here in our first segment, but let's check it out.
Saturday, March 21st, ProBox TV invades the NOS Event Center as Lester Martinez and Emmanuel Ali battle for the WBC World Super Middleweight title. Palmdale's Joshua Kevin Anton battles the Uzbeki Punisher. LA is in the house as Anthony Too Quick Cuba defends home turf against Brooklyn's Wesley Farrell, while Sam Contreras takes on Cesar Cantu.
that Lester Martinez, Emmanuel Alim fight.
Yeah.
Getting very excited for that one. We've been able to speak to both guys, their trainers, everything. It looks like it's going to be an awesome fight. Also, tickets are flying off the shelves. So if you guys are still looking to go, if you're in the area, definitely want to check it out. It's going to be a raucous
Both
night.
guys shoot their bullets too.
Yeah, it's a fire
they're
fight.
gonna fight.
It's a real ProBox TV main event, and not an easy fight for.
You
for
know,
Lester
you make
Martinez,
Lester
who-
the favorite, but
Yeah, it's
like
a
I said,
fight.
both guys are shooters, so they're gonna be.
And as
they're
I
gonna be
always
slinging
say,
guns. Gunslingers
get shot. So
Yeah,
we'll
somebody's
see how
going
that
down
one
in that
goes.
fight, but it's a shootout.
Okay, so let's we're talking big fight breakdown here, our second segment, and we are talking about Jai Opetaia calling out the other champion, Noel Mikaelian. So what is
One of the other champions.
one of the other champions? Yes, because we already said that David Benavidez and Zurdo Ramirez are fighting May 2nd, I believe.
May 2nd,
So
yeah.
it's already set. That's already happening. So those guys are out of the title picture for now to have a potential fight with Jai Opetaia. But Noel
is there a
Mikaelian.
title on the line with Cruiserweight and Benavidez? There is, right? WBO doesn't do
there's
the
a
WBO
title on the
title.
line there
Yeah.
because Ramirez is a champion. And Mikaelian, who beat
WBC
Batu
champion.
Jack,
Yep.
is a champion as well. And we've seen them at the Apex Center together facing off.
Mm-hmm.
We had Jai Opetaia and Mikaelian. We thought that was going to be the first fight that was going to happen on the Zuffa 4 card. It wasn't, obviously. It was Brandon Glanton who stepped in, top 15 guy, depending on who you talk to, ring, top 10. But we got that fight out of the way. But
He's a
in
top
the
10
ring,
because there's not enough cruiserweights.
yeah, well, this is top 10 because in terms of
I mean,
to hold on to the
skill
ring
level-wise-
belts, you have to be a top 10 guy. So you
To
gotta-
make it a
yeah,
defense, I get it.
it's-
Yeah, but in
yeah.
cruiserweight division is not that
Yeah,
deep.
no, I mean it's he's probably around that top
yeah.
10ish. Anyway, calls out Noel Mikaelian, another champion. Obviously wants to fight the best guys in the world, like we've been alluding to. What do you think about that fight? It's just that talk stylistically. How do you think that fight goes?
I like the fight. I like
do
the fight.
too.
I think it's a fun fight. I worked Mikaelian's last fight when he beat Batu Jack. Solid fighter. You know, again, this is not a generation of cruiserweights that is the best, but it's also not the worst.
Yeah, it's not a murderer's row, but
It's a pretty good division. Again, I repeat, the division that Usyk unified in was unbelievable. To unify in that cruiserweight division showed you just how special Usyk was, and so therefore it should be of no surprise that Usyk then went on to dominate the heavyweight division, because that was a very difficult cruiserweight division. I don't think Mikaelian is on the level of Gassiev back then, Dorticos back then, Bradis back then, Usyk back then. So he wouldn't even be top 4 or 5 in those days. Even Silvarchik and Steve Cunningham would just
Steve's good.
who had just been around that time as well. I don't think Mikaelian's on the level of any of those guys. But right now he might be, a top 3 cruiser.
No,
You know,
sure. I
like,
mean,
we don't
he
know
has a
what kind of
title. He has a title.
cruiser.
He
We don't know
beat
what kind
Jack.
of cruiser Benavidez is going to be. You'd probably rate Zurdo ahead of Mikaelian at the moment. But yeah, I mean, he's got a good win over Badu. You know, it's an older Badu, but
Champ, I'm being told that we got some very special guests. We have award-winning writer Lance Pugmire and Robert Garcia, our good friend. But Lance, Robert, welcome to the show. Talking big fight breakdown, Jai Opetaia's performance last night, and the potential for a Mikaelian matchup down the way. What Lance, you were there last night. Talk to us about what the arena was like, what the post-fight press conference was like, a lot of interesting things were said there from what I
Lance, you were there?
Lance was there.
Guess who's back in the circle of trust?
I'm in a Zuffa. I'm in a Zuffa.
I have no audio.
Lance, you're having trouble hearing you.
Hold on. We need some help from the truck. I gotta give us some audio. Guys, by the way, you're live. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe.
Oh, and hit our mailbag.
Give us some shout outs. Give us some mailbags and while we fix the microphone situation here with Lance and Coach Garcia. Hopefully we'll get that soon.
Having some technical issues. It is a Monday, so
Monday technical issues. But guys, leave your comments, guys. What basically what we've been discussing here. We hope
Robert,
that
can you hear us? Are you
I can
available?
hear you guys. Yes, I can hear
Robert,
you guys.
no, they hear us. We just don't hear them.
Yeah, he can't.
That's the thing. So that's why we're addressing the crowd, the fans, and the.
All right, so you got to give
section.
your take on Mikaelian in that fight, and I agree. I think it's a fight that needs to happen. I think he's tricky enough that it's worth seeing how it would go. Because
He's a WBC cruiserweight champion.
Yeah,
I think it's worth seeing
I think
for that
stylistically,
reason
though,
alone.
even- oh, yeah,
and
beyond that.
stylistically,
Of course
yeah.
that. But even
stylistically,
stylistically-
you still favor Opetaia again.
Yes.
Opetaia's my number 1 guy at cruiserweight, but I just want to see how he goes
you have
about
to- you have to see it.
his way
And what he's able
against
to
these
do with it.
champions. You'd favor him to win, but can he win looking good? Can he dominate? Because Michaelian is not he's not no cupcake. You know,
No.
he's a
He's a
physical
hard dude.
guy.
He's a hardened guy. Yeah.
He's got some awkwardness to his style.
Experience, very
Not the
experienced.
fastest guy, not super strong, but he's not weak either.
He's
You know, he'll hurt
not
you.
going to wow you.
He'll get you.
He's opposite of Jai.
Yeah.
Jai is going to wow you.
Yeah.
This guy's
So-
not. He'll find a way.
Can Jai deter his winning mentality? You know, he's not as one track minded as, for example, Glanton.
Glanton, no.
But is he as durable as Glanton? He's pretty durable. I don't know if anybody's
he
as
is
good or
durable.
durable as Glanton in the cruiserweight division, but he's pretty durable and probably has a couple of different extra gears than Glanton has. Glanton has one gear. He's got a solid gear, but it's one gear. Michaelian may have a couple of different gears that, you know, Opetaia may have to worry about. But maybe Michaelian is not quite as durable as Glanton. So
Yeah.
that firepower Opetaia has at cruiserweight may result in something spectacular.
Ultimately, it's an interesting fight.
Absolutely.
Can we get our panel,
Our esteemed panel in.
to wade in on this one?
Lance, you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Nope, still no good.
No
Truck,
good.
guys, we're sleeping today. The Monday blues, guys. Let's have it.
I'm not muted.
We'll keep addressing the crowd in the comment section. Again, give us your thoughts here. You know, I've been giving mine. What is your thoughts on Michaelian, guys at home? You know, what are your thoughts on
Well,
Michaelian?
do you guys really know much about him?
Do you know much about him? Did you watch the fight in December when he beat Badu Jack? If any of you watched that fight, what did you think of that
Well, they
of
fought
that fight,
twice,
of that
actually.
performance? They fought twice,
They fought
but
twice,
Michaelian got. I think the first fight was a draw.
It was a draw the
And
first
then,
time, which a lot of people thought Michaelian
yeah,
had won.
and then
in the
Michaelian-
second fight he came
in the
out on
second
top.
fight, he pulled it
But
out. in the
Badu Jack
second half.
is he's a tough out no matter how old he is,
Yeah.
or no matter what weight
No,
class
it
he's
was
in.
still competitive for half the fight. But
Yes.
Michaelian pulled it out in the second half of the fight. You know, I think he turned it around in the second half of the fight. Guys,
I think I'm hearing
I'm hearing
some
background
other
noise, which means we might have some guys that are connected with us.
okay?
Yeah,
Lance, we
Lance,
got you. Boom. That's what I'm
Yes,
talking
I can
about.
hear you,
Boom.
but I don't think they
Coach
could hear
Garcia.
us.
we got
We
you
got
both now.
Coach, we
both.
got you.
And right now I can't hear Paulie anymore.
You can't hear me. All right, so
Yeah,
now we
neither can
switched.
I.
Yeah.
So now we switched. We hear you and you don't hear us. All right, we're on a roll today, guys. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
There we go, champ.
Monday. Yes.
Monday, yes.
Nice.
Working out the kinks.
Can we address some comments or something? We have any comments
I
in
don't
the
have any
comment section?
comments.
We don't have any comments in the comment section. We
available.
need our
Maybe
comments in
the
the comment
truck can
section.
let me
The
know.
truck will let us know some
How
comments.
far along is that BAM
But
negotiation?
I feel like I hear Lance.
I hear Lance
in the
I hear
background.
Lance.
Why do I hear him in the background and not in the foreground?
This afternoon,
I'm
hopefully
grabbing
getting
it. We're
closer.
having a really
But,
good conversation
we're gonna
with
get
Lance
it
Bryan
done.
right now.
So just little things, details.
Such a great event for him. Perfect.
Let's get
Oh, it would be
back
awesome.
to the Opetaia Jai Zuffa 4 situation and Michaelian. Do you think that's a logical next step?
Yeah, it's a logical next step. Then
How does it happen though? Because we have another titleist. Do you think Zuffa now goes, you know what? We are done with these title situations. We're not dealing with governing bodies anymore. If you want to fight our guy, leave your belt at home.
I mean, they could do that in the cruiserweight division. I think they could until you get to Zurdo Benavidez. Zurdo Benavidez is a bit more of a difficult out. You know, that's why I think right now they say, hey, you know, we'll work with the sanctioning bodies. It's them who don't want to work with us. I think that's why they're framing it that way. The way they tried to frame it over the weekend. But I do think everybody has a price as far as, you know, what they'll do. Even Benavidez and Zurdo, the winner of that fight. And if you're throwing, here's the problem you set. Here's the precedent you set. You gave $15 million to Conor Ben. Now, what's the winner of Zurdo and Benavidez going to ask for if you're going to fight Jai Opetaia?
Like I said the other day, you got Ben as a co-main event to Tyson Fury, and he's getting $15 million. Tyson's probably looking at him like, all right, dude, you owe me 60.
Not only that, now you
60.
want to get Benavidez and Zurdo winner.
They're
They're going to be like, buddy,
showing
you're going to give me
their hand
$60 million.
in terms of negotiating. There's a lot of managers right now that are feeling really, really excited. They're drooling
feeling really
because
froggy.
there's a lot of money getting thrown around. But real quick, we're going to toss to a highlight of Naji Lopez. I know someone that you really like, Paulie Naji, a guy that we've watched quite a bit. He's got a fight coming up very soon.
Next week.
Next
on
week.
ProBox TV
Exactly.
next Friday night.
Yeah, guys, check us out. But let's go check out him doing some work and some interviewing.
Yeah, that's off the dome.
Some contenders talk, others climb. Naji Lopez is still climbing. The goal has always been the same: a world title.
Idea of me fighting for a world championship, man, that's a dream come true, you know what I'm saying? That's what I've been working my entire life for. Can't wait till that time comes.
But ambition isn't enough. You evolve. or you fall behind.
My style evolved in lots of ways. A more disciplined, more poet style. Work behind that jab. Laying bombs. Anytime, I see it.
March 13 brings another step. Manuel Gallegos. Experienced, dangerous, not coming to lose.
Gallegos, man, he tough fighter right there. But I feel like he is perfect for me.
There ain't nothing else to say. I don't like to do this.
His style is perfect for my style. I can't wait to, just show the people. Just go ahead and slice him up.
This isn't a showcase. It's a proving ground.
My mentality on that really is just to show everybody that I belong there. Show everybody that I got what it takes. I'm elite too. That's all I think about while I'm training, while I'm in the locker room getting ready, just to, show the world that I'm who I say I am.
Every contender reaches a moment where belief has to be stronger than noise.
I already know what I can do. Preparing and every time the opportunity comes, just keep going out there and showing that I'm getting better, improving every time, looking sharp.
Yeah, I must be blind cause the way that it's looking, I'm trying, but I don't see no competition.
For Naji Lopez, that moment is now.
I just want them to see Naji Lopez go out there and do his thing and shine every time he get in the ring. And that's it.
Oh, beautiful right hands.
I just want the fans to see an amazing fight. I love my Puerto Ricans, I love my Mexicans. I just want them to enjoy the fight.
Every fight is another step upward. March 13th, the climb continues on ProBox TV.
Fight week for Naji Lopez. Fight is a few days away versus Manuel Gallegos. Very tough opposition. Big step up in class for Naji Lopez. Let's see how we can handle that step up with someone we've had on our air can really fight like Gallegos. But we are joined by Lance Pugmire and Robert Garcia.
Three
Let's
times
try
the charm.
this
Let's
again.
go.
See if we got him. Guys, welcome.
Hi, guys.
All right, we hear you, Lance. You hear us?
Guys.
How about me? How about me? Can you
Coach
guys hear me?
Garcia,
we got you, Coach.
Beautiful.
You hear us.
That's awesome. Good.
Okay,
All right.
Lance, let's go back to that initial question I had. You were there last night at Zuffa 4. You were in the arena. You felt the vibe. You were there for the post-fight press conference. I actually heard you ask some questions to Dana White. How was the event? What were your main takeaways from all the fight itself and all the post-fight discussion?
I think it was the most festive event that they've had so far. Obviously, I'm giving them a little bit of a break because they are so new. They're just getting started. They're trying to build their brand, so to speak, by starting on the Apex. I think sooner rather than later, they should start getting out of there and spreading the wealth to, maybe some of the communities where we know there are such vibrant markets of San Antonio, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, even LA, to try to mix it up. But yeah, good vibe in there. I think that it's Jai Opetaia put on a great show, really showed so much of his skill set and, a great, what should have been a title defense for him against a top 15 guy was not. And then that news really took over the event.
Lance, you mentioned about, the Apex Center and it's, seeing a guy at the level of Jai Opetaia fighting at Apex, I don't think that's initially was the idea. But in terms of what this rollout has been, my thoughts on it are, do the fights at the Apex Center, because essentially what's happening right now is a beta test for Zuffa. They're figuring out all the kinks of how to put on a show. They're doing it in-house. They have all the fighters have a place to stay. They're fed. It's all in-house. It makes it much easier from a logistical standpoint to work out these kind of kinks. Is that what it seems like, that you're there and it seems like it's going to grow out of that position?
It does, yeah. Dana White talked about they're going to expand it. I think it has about like 500 to 600 seats right now. It's going to be able to allow up to 1,300 in the near future. They've got an expansion project underway. So they can definitely get some fights in there. But, putting a championship fight in there just does seem inappropriate and almost like an insult to the champion who has worked to build his career to such a height. To have to fight in such a small venue is not right. But again, look, what is right for Jai Opetaia is the money that's coming in, so I think he can live with it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Lance. Maybe you may not look at it as it's not right for a champion, but for Jai, it obviously was right for him. He had to know that he was going to start out in the Apex Center when he signed with Zuffa. That was the plan. That was their plan. That was their role. That was their rollout from the start, right? I mean, you assume so when you agreed to the contract. I think you're more likely looking to agree on the financial terms than anything else when there's a contract involved and the stipulation that you'll get busy and so on and so forth, which you assume they'll keep him busy.
Yeah.
Where do you see him going from there? Do you think this is a bit of the ProBox TV model? Do you remember the ProBox Event Center when we were using it?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of that model, just we didn't have championship fights.
Have you been to the Apex?
I've been to the UFCPI. I don't know if the Apex is in the UFCPI.
Okay. So, yeah.
But
yeah, right across the street.
Yeah.
But,
right
listen, I think that as far as Jai, I asked him after the fight, I said, look, even though you're not going to be IBF champion anymore, you still are considered champion in so many people's eyes. And what would you like to do next? And I think, guys, one of the things that maybe we lose sight of with the Zuffa belt and IBF belt clashing is that this company is still connected to the ring belt. And we've seen all of these cruiserweights have fought with Saudi Arabia, right? David Benavidez, that's where his last fight was. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez was on that Mexico card not too long ago. I believe it was last year. And then even Noel Makelian was on it in the first Badu Jack fight. So Turki Al-Sheikh has the ability to bring all these guys together and stage these fights. So I asked him, hey, do you want to fight the Zurdo Benavidez winner next? And he said, next is too soon. But I would be very interested in going right into Makelian, given that he's off. He doesn't have a fight. He won the belt. I believe it was in December. I was there against Badu Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one that's really kind of whetting his appetite right now. And I believe that is going to be, possible to happen under the stewardship of Turki Al-Sheikh.
Yeah, before we get into that, in terms of the potential next fight, Robert, I want to bring you in and ask what you thought about the performance of Jai Opetaia and what you saw against a guy like Brandon Glanton, who's very, very solid, obviously, and super durable. But what was your take on the performance by Jai?
Look, I think his skills are there. He showed skills. He had a tough opponent. I know Brandon Glanton for a few years already. He was actually in my gym for a couple of years training, just learning and getting in shape and getting experience. But look, Lance just said that Jay said that the winner of Benavidez versus Zurdo is not next. That is too soon. I don't understand. Why is he saying it's too soon? Is he not ready for them? Does he believe that he can beat them now? He has to wait a little bit longer. I think he should be fighting. He should be going after the winner and have no question about it. I think he's got the skills to compete against them. So that's already, to me, this is the first time I hear that. Lance says he said he's he not next. That means he feels like he's not ready for them or something. That's my question. Maybe he doesn't believe in himself. I don't know.
Coach, what if it's a scheduling thing? Zurdo and Ramirez don't fight until
May.
Zurdo and Benavidez don't fight until May. Then obviously there's a recovery period before you can fight again. Maybe this is saying not next because in the meantime you can make the Makelian fight. Jai didn't take too much damage in the meantime. You possibly can make the Makelian fight as soon as June, even. As soon as July.
That is true.
And then in the meantime, the winner of Zurdo and Ramirez recovers, and then you fight the winner of that fight in the fall, winter, if in fact you're able to make that fight, which would be ideal.
That makes a lot of sense the way you're saying it, Paulie. And yes, Jay did not get punished. He clearly won. So yes, he could fight soon. And we know that Benavidez versus Zurdo is probably going to be a little bit more of a
rough fight,
tougher fight, a rough fight where both are going to need more time to recover. So if that's the way he's thinking, then I'm totally okay with that. But if it was because he feels that he might not be ready, that he needs another fight before that, then that's what I didn't like. If that's the way he meant, but yeah, if it's because of the timing, then I'm okay with it. I want to see the fight. I think Jay has a lot of talent. He's very talented. He's got the skills. I think he needs a little more of that instinct, that killer instinct, that the warrior,
Robert,
to show a little bit more. I think he needs that, but he's got great skills, man. I love his skills.
Robert, that while I have your great boxing mind here, you brought up a point right there that I wanted to ask you about. Was there anything that you saw in the fight last night from Jai with Glanton that would give you a little bit of pause fighting a guy like Zurdo Ramirez or David Benavidez? Obviously, big guys for the weight class. They throw a ton of punches, a lot of aggression. Did you see anything in the fight last night against Glanton that would make you think like, well, I could see how Zurdo could get him, or I could see how David could get him?
I think it was because of his patience. He's very talented, but he's very patient. Takes control of the fight, but doesn't do that extra. A real fighter, a real warrior. Especially against somebody like Benavidez, because I think it would have to be against Benavidez. He would have to push it a little bit extra, a little bit more to be able to compete. I think his skills, the way he fought, is not enough to beat somebody like Benavidez, but he does have the skills. And against Glanton, I think Glanton was there to get hit. Glanton was there to survive and put up a fight. But I think Jay just played it safe, smart, won the fight every round, and was happy with that. I think he could have done a little bit more.
So Robert, you saw the same thing that Paulie and I saw, because we had some questions about the physicality.
That's the thing. I mean, the physicality of Glanton, is it going to be the same kind of physicality of Benavidez and Zurdo bringing to the table? They may want to, but they are not natural cruiserweights, coach. Glanton is a big cruiserweight. He's a former defensive lineman. He's got a sturdy chin. He can punch, and his physicality is a bit different. Zurdo and Benavidez may intend to be physical, but against a natural cruiserweight, they are both guys who turned pro at 168. They may not bring that physicality. They also may feel Jai's punches more than Glanton did. Glanton's a durable guy. His neck is like a tree trunk. You've probably figured it was going to go the distance. But I know me and Chris were talking before the fight. We figured the fight was going to go the distance, and people were underestimating the durability that Glanton has. But he's one-dimensional. These guys are not one-dimensional, Benavidez and Zurdo, but they are still guys who turn pro at 168. If Jai with that firepower lands the way he landed on Glanton, you may get a different reaction, because the other cruiserweights in the division, when Jai hits them, there's a different reaction there than what Glanton was given.
I agree, and then that's totally correct. But was
he just cooking Glanton, and he didn't cook him enough? Was he just cooking Glanton?
He almost got him.
That's what he can do. And I think with Zurdo or Benavidez, I think he will probably, because they are the guys that are moving up in weight and that. So I think he will have the confidence to maybe put up a little bit of a better show where he goes in there and exchanges, because he does have that advantage. So that's what's gonna make it a great fight, because we know either Zurdo or Benavidez, especially Benavidez, they're gonna go out there to fight, and they might feel the difference in the weight, so they might have some problem there, because the size, the strength. Physically, they're gonna see the difference. So they know they're gonna be in a real fight. I think Jai Opetaia is perfect for that fight, and to go out there and put up a great show and to win the fans, because I think this performance last night wasn't enough to say he's gonna, he's one of the top guys. He's ready for these guys, even though he's much bigger and he's the bigger guy, the stronger guy against Benavidez. But we know Benavidez is going to go out there to put up a fight. So I think that fight is going to put Jay where the fans are really going to believe in him and are really going to like him.
Yeah, Robert, I agree. I said earlier in the show, I think that this performance by Jai Opetaia made more questions than actual answers, and we want to see what's next. So let me ask you, Lance, in terms of the post-fight press conference, post-fight interview in the ring with Max Kellerman and Jai Opetaia, it seemed like they were having two different conversations. Max was talking about, you already are undisputed, and Jai was saying, nah, basically, I got to fight these champions. And from Robert, you talking about these matchups, I'm getting excited thinking about Jai Opetaia fighting the winner of David Benavidez and Zotto Ramirez, of getting in there with Michelion and seeing what he can do with that. So what was your take on that, Lance, with that in-ring interview by Max with Jai?
A couple things. Obviously, Jai Opetaia wants what he wants. And in the post-fight news conference, when I asked Dana White about it, I said, look, you've obviously had this bad experience with the IBF. Does it make you want to say, like, hey, that's the straw that broke the camel's back and I'm forever done with the sanctioning bodies? And surprisingly, Dana White said no. He really said, like, look, we're inheriting fighters who have dreams, goals, and ambitions that they have brought to us. And we want to respect those. So we will do what it takes to allow them to have these fights that they want. Now, obviously, for Opetaia, he didn't mention any other name other than Michelion, Zerto, and Benavidez. So, anyone else, like they would feed him like they did on Sunday, I don't think that's going to be good enough for Jai. And I think that from what we heard from Zuffa, they understand where he is in his career and what he needs in his career. So from my perspective as a boxing reporter and as a boxing fan, I think that's a good development.
Yeah, that's good to hear, Lance. I didn't think it was going to go that way.
Right.
And for them to understand that these are dreams of fighters that they've had their entire lives, and to take that from them now, I think is going to leave a bad taste in a lot of their mouths.
But do you think that's going to be the long-term play? I still don't think so.
I think
they may make an exception right now because they don't have all the pull, but once they get the leverage on their side, they've pretty much showed their hand already. They showed their cards already when they've made those initial announcements. No.
I mean, look, we can have as much cynicism and skepticism toward what Zuffa is doing, and it's very, very much deserved because they do want ultimate control of everything. Dana White did say in the same conversation last night that he wants to go out and sign everybody. So if he can go out and sign everybody, then I guess those fights are going to take place under the Zuffa banner. But the bottom line is that you can only stage so many fights like you did last night. If you are, because we know this competition, that I see it as a war already underway between DAZN and Paramount Plus. There is no way you're going to win that war if you're going to give us a slew of the types of fights that we saw on Sunday versus the product that DAZN is going to attempt to produce and showcase on their streaming platform.
Robert, you're in the gym with a slew of savages as always. All your guys, all your fighters, everybody's training really hard. You've got guys that have been dreaming up being champions their entire lives. What's their take? You're with them day in and day out, shoulder to shoulder. What is their take on the idea that they would give up an opportunity to fight for all these belts that we have on the wall in order to fight for some new belt under a new organization? Are these guys willing to forego these dreams of seeing the green belt above their head, for the paycheck? What's the take in the gym?
I'm going to tell you this straight out. All of my guys are telling us, take me to Zuffa. I want to be there. I want to make that kind of money. Forget about the belts. That's what everybody's telling me. Look,
so it's not the green belt. It's the green. It's the green. It's the green money.
Exactly. Look, my kid that fought on that card last night. He's a 6-round fighter. 6-round fighter. He got performance of the night, and he ended up leaving with $70,000.
Way to go.
What was the bonus?
$50,000 bonus.
Wow, for a 6-round fighter.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Good for him.
They treat the middle class good. It's the upper class that are going to be happy. The middle class gets treated good.
All my other guys fighting 8 and 10 rounds are telling me, Robert, get me there. I need that money.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though.
I didn't make much more than that to win a world title.
Here's my question, Lance. You brought up a point that Dana in the press conference was saying we're going to fight all the big fighters. Has he made a mistake, though, by setting the precedent, the bar too high for signing essentially what is probably, out of all the fighters they'd probably want to sign, the big names that he's talking about? When he talks about all the fighters, he's probably talking about the big names who people think may not be reachable.
Well, people are asking about Shakur.
Well, or guys in general of that level, right? When you talk about that, you just gave $15 million to what essentially amounts to the lowest hanging fruit. Anybody else you're going to be looking to sign is a better fighter than Conor Benn. Anybody else in that conversation that you're saying when you talk about we're going to sign all the fighters, has he set the precedent too high now? I mean, if you gave Conor Benn $15 million with an option for more, that I'm hearing the second fight is even more. What is it going to cost you to sign all the fighters? Has the bar been set too high? And I'm not even asking if it's doable. They got a never-ending war chest of money, but
that's just the thing, Paulie. I mean, we can sit here and say that it is high, but look, the Conor Benn money.
But the people that where the money's coming from, eventually there is a point where the people where the money's coming from say, "Buddy, what are you doing with my money? What are we just torching it on fire?"
I agree, but we've been having that conversation for 2 years now. And
but now they've actually made the moves. Now he signed Conor Benn $15 million. So you set a precedent here.
But that was not his money. That's Turkey's money.
I said that the other day.
No, that's the thing. That's the thing. They're still relying on that war chest, and we don't know. We don't know how extensive that war chest is and how long it's going to last.
So that's not
Zuffa Boxing. But right now,
that's not the billion of the Paramount contract at all.
I told you that last week.
No, I know, but I want to confirm it on air. I'm trying to get confirmation here on air so everybody at home understands too.
It's apples and oranges, but they're all there together. They're drawing from that well, and how deep that well is, I mean, we can sit here and guess all day long, but we don't really know.
Well, guys, Lance, Robert, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your incredible insight. We'll see you guys soon. But now let's shoot a promo over to the Lester Martinez battle with Emmanuel Aleem coming up in a few weeks. Let's see.
21st of March.
Yeah, it's a couple weeks away. Boom. Man, this is a big month for us, man. This is March Madness in full swing.
Saturday, March 21st, ProBox TV invades the NOS Event Center as Lester Martinez and Emmanuel Aleem battle for the WBC World Super Middleweight title. Palmdale's Joshua Kevin Anton battles the Uzbeki Punisher. LA is in the house as Anthony Too Quick Cuba defends home turf against Brooklyn's Wesley Farrell, while Sam Contreras takes on Cesar Cantu.
Welcome to Boxing Scene's Mailbag. That's probably one of our favorite segments, right? I mean,
you know what it is? We can't rehearse it. It's just the mailbag is random.
It's off the cuff. I mean, listen, what's not off the cuff with you?
Yeah, I mean, with me, I don't. But in general,
listen, you guys might think that
usually people like.
I prepare.
They give me this rundown like I'm gonna go, like I'm gonna follow it.
It doesn't even have.
I'm looking at it right now.
You barely broke it. It's like the spine of a book that's never been opened. But anyway, our first question.
That's what people want. People want my rants naturally. I'm very
I understand that.
You can't rehearse those kind of things.
But also, we have Breadman on with us. What's going on, Bread? How are you, bro?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. You're doing great. I like that poster. You got Scarface, Al Pacino in the background there. All right.
We got posters too. We got posters.
Yeah, All right. So we're big movie buffs over here. We talk about movies all the time. So I like to see the movies back there. We got fight posters back here.
For you. I named my son's middle name is Carlito from Carlitos.
Look at that. Nice. Look at that. All right. Well, so Bregman, we got going into our mailbag. We got some interesting questions. Of course, obviously coming off the tail end of the Jai Opetaia win last night, where we dominated against Brandon Glanton. Question is, what is the toughest fight for Jai Opetaia in the current crop of the Cruiserweight division?
The winner of Zordo versus Benavidez, to me.
Pretty easy one right there. Who do you think has the edge in that fight?
I like Benavidez by decision in that fight.
And that being said, did you see anything? We actually just had Robert Garcia on. We were asking him the same questions. Champ and I spoke about it earlier. What are your thoughts on what you saw last night from Opetaia against Glanton? That maybe you might see that and be like, I can see positions where David would be really successful, or that Zurdo could give him some trouble.
I got a lot of respect for Glanton, but he's not on the same level as Zordo and Benavidez. So there's things you can do to him that you may not be able to do to them. You know what I mean? He's probably a naturally bigger man, and I don't know if they take the punishment that he took, because he took a lot of punishment, but he wouldn't get off those kind of shots versus them either. So it kind of evens itself out.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Brett. Based on that explanation, I kind of feel the same way. He doesn't have as much versatility as your Zurdos and Benavidez of the world, but those guys also turned pro at 168. So I presented that question to Robert Garcia. Opetaia was landing really good shots, crisp shots. I love the shot selection I saw last night from him, but at the same time, it wasn't getting the full respect of Glanton. He hurt him at the end, but Glanton kept coming forward the whole time. He kept trying the whole time. Granted, it was a one-gear fighter, and so it's a one-trick pony. These guys come forward in different ways, vary their speeds, but are they going to take the firepower of Opetaia if it lands in the same way? These guys having been 168-pounders, we've seen less durable cruiserweights obviously not take it as well from Opetaia. Glanton pretty much was always going to be a distance fighter in the Opetaia fight, and having that one gear was going to always be a bit too one-dimensional. You know, it's a different proposition. It's a different test, but you think I assume you'd favor him over Benavidez and Zurdo or no? Let's start with that.
Paulie, let me see how the fight looks. I want to see how Benavidez looks. I know I'm favoring Benavidez, but I still need to see what he looks like at cruiserweight. Mm-hmm. I like Zurdo, but for the last year and a half, maybe, I kind of felt that Opetaia was the best cruiserweight in the world. He just hasn't had a chance to prove it. Mm-hmm. But now with Benavidez in the mix, I'm picking Benavidez to beat Zurdo, but I want to see how he looks and then kind of get back to me. You know what I mean? That's 25 pounds that you got to be able to operate with. So I got to see how Benavidez looks at cruiserweight. And one of the reasons why I'm picking him is what you said. Zurdo used to be a 68-pounder. So your bottom weight that you start out, it does matter. You know what I mean? It's like, Paulie, it's like you probably took a couple of fights over 147, right? So then somebody goes back and says, well, how would Paulie do with Julian Jackson or Mike McCallum? I would say that's not a fair fight. Paulie's a 40-pounder. You just happened to fight.
I turned pro at 35.
Yeah,
my
that's
first 7 fights.
Than where you start out at. So, like, I couldn't hypothetically match you with Mike McCallum or Tommy Hearns or Julian Jackson at 154 just because you fought there before. So I got to see how Benavidez looks, and then I'll get back to you on that. But I think Opetaia he's a hard day's work for either one of those guys.
That's a great point, Brad, man. I always say, like, I was really a 40-pounder. I'm undefeated at 140. I never lost my title. I never lost a fight at 140. But I was offered a lot of big opportunities at 47. Never needed to move up, but I always did. I even came back down to 40 in my late 30s. So I do believe that weight class does matter. Your first weight class does matter. But let me think of a counterpoint here. I think one of the reasons why Benavidez and Zurdo have both been so successful at these higher weights is because of their time spent at 68, because of the hand speed. They have a definitive hand speed advantage over everybody they fight at cruiserweight. Would we be able to see that against Opetaia?
I think we will, and I'm going to tell you another advantage that they have. They have calories to burn at the higher weights, and it does mean, struggling to make weight, it lowers your testosterone and it demoralizes you. Eventually,
takes your heart away too.
Yeah, fighters move up. It's not. It's almost like, what am I cutting this 20 pounds for? It starts to depress you after a certain point. So when you have those calories to burn, you feel better. You have more water around your brain. You have more fat on your body, which is a good source of energy. So it evens itself out. I just think we kind of have to see. I suspect that David Benavidez is special, though. I suspect he's a generational talent. Where I look at Opetaia and I look at Zurdo as a very good fighter, but I feel like I know what he is. Opetaia, I'm still up in the air. I have to see more of him to tell whether he's a great fighter or he's just a very good fighter. I think we need to see more of him.
The way he handled the physicality of Glanton last night, or maybe the way he didn't handle it, I don't know. I thought there was some spots in there where Glanton was giving him physical trouble on the inside, or always pushing him back. Does it leave you concerned about a move to heavyweight?
Yes, it does. Listen, I'm not sure Opetaia beats Benavidez. Pound for pound, I believe that Benavidez is better than Opetaia. I just don't know if he can beat him at 200 pounds. That's a little bit of, you understand what I'm saying? Well, you guys know what I'm saying.
100%, yeah.
I don't know if he can beat him at his best weight, but Benavidez applies a little more craft than Opetaia. Opetaia has the physicality, he has the punching power, but he's not as polished as Benavidez. If you look, I know you guys saw some things in there. Yeah. He don't apply his skill set quite like Benavidez does, but he may have a big physicality advantage over him. He just may just be too physical for him. We still don't know. But I'm definitely concerned about him. Usyk moving up was a little different than Opetaia moving up. Opetaia doesn't apply his skill the way Usyk does. I don't know if Opetaia is going to outbox elite heavyweights with his particular skill set.
And Brett,
I don't know if he can do that.
Brett, we were talking about earlier that even Usyk in his first couple of heavyweight fights had to settle in with some physical heavyweights like Chisora and Chaz Witherspoon, and he didn't always look so hot in those first couple of heavyweight fights. The physicality bothered him, and he sort of had to settle in. Could there be a settle-in period for Jai? Maybe he doesn't have to struggle to make weight, so he's stronger.
Listen, and Opetaia, I don't believe he has the natural boxing instincts that Usyk does.
No,
a lot of guys don't.
We have to remember that Usyk is very, very good at scoring points. He comes from that same school that Lomachenko came from. He can score points. I don't know if Opetaia has that level of blue chippy pedigree where if he can't hurt you and beat you up, he can still outpoint you and still win these fights. It's a little different.
Yeah, Jai relies more on athleticism than Usyk did,
and physicality, and hurting you. You know
yes,
what I mean?
he's a seek and destroy guy for sure.
Yeah, well, Usyk doesn't have to hurt you to beat you.
No.
He just has to tame you and control you. There's a little difference in the way they apply their games. And Usyk is longer and more rangier than Opetaia. We look at Usyk as a small guy. He's not as small as we think. He's just small because the guys he's fighting are 6'9", 270 pounds. But Usyk is 6'3", 225 pounds with a very good reach. If you look at history throughout the heavyweight division, you take the average size of the heavyweights, Usyk is bigger than, I'd say, 60-70% of the great heavyweight champions. So Opetaia does not have the range and the physical gifts that Usyk does too. Opetaia seems a little closer to 6 foot than me, and he's not as long as rangy as Usyk is.
Great points as always, Brad. So we got another question. This is one I actually was able to ask Robert Garcia about because he is in the gym. And Brad, you're in the gym too. You're around fighters, day in and day out. Are fighters willing to give up the opportunity to fight for these belts that are behind me in order to make that Zuffa green?
That's a great question, Chris. I'm going to say that fighters are loyal to whoever is giving them the best opportunity. And that's just the truth.
It's a great answer.
If the big promotional companies, I'm around a lot of fighters all the time, and these guys need their bills paid. Yep. A lot of these guys, they're getting $1,500, $2,000 a month from their managers. They're working part-time, and they still have these aspirations of being a great champion. And if somebody comes along and offers them a way to feed their family, they're going to be loyal to that.
And also to be able to concentrate fully on boxing, right? Because then if you pay your bills that way, you can concentrate fully on boxing.
Yeah, because when you take a monthly stipend from your manager, that manager's not taking 5 and 10% from you anymore. He's going to take 30 and 33%, however much.
People always forget about that. It ain't no free money.
And the manager's not wrong.
No.
He's not wrong if he's invested in you and expects a handsome return on his investment. So, they're going to be loyal to whoever gives them the opportunity. And if Zuffa is offering the opportunity, then guys are going to take it.
And also, Zuffa seems to be treating the fighters in a way they've never been treated. They're used to fighting on the local club cards or on the deep part of a big card. Now we're getting A1 treatment. You get these young guys who are in 6 rounders, and they're like, wow, I've never had so many opportunities. The way they pick me up, they got the cars, they got the food, they got the Apex Center. So they're getting a little touch of what stardom feels like.
You know something, Paulie? I mean, Chris, what you just said is a very, very big deal that people miss. Us being inside the game, right? People may take this stuff as being small, but it's really not. A lot of times fighters get so comfortable with their promotional company. I'm sure this happened to you guys. You call up somebody from the company and say, hey, man, I want to fly my strength and conditioning coach in. Hey, man, where's my per diems at? Hey, man, what hotel are we staying in? Hey, if I got to fly 5-6 hours, then I need a first-class flight. All of this little stuff matters.
Mm-hmm.
Fighters get tired of getting treated a certain kind of way. You go to the host city of the event, and a lot of fighters are broke. You know how many times I had to treat the whole team until we get our per diems? You know what I mean? I had to feed everybody until we get our per diems. It might be small to other people, but it's not small to a kid who is freaking driving a Lyft to make ends meet, and he gets to the city and he's hungry and he hasn't eaten in 2 days and he has to find his per diem. Or he wants his cut man to come and he has scar tissue and he doesn't want to just pick up anybody, but because the contract says 3 people and he only can afford to fly himself and his 2 trainers out, then he can't bring his cut man. All that stuff matters. So how you treat the fighters, it does matter. They think about these little things. Yeah. So many fighters
it goes a long way.
Can my other coach come? And I'll say, look, bro, who's going to put him in the room? Who's going to pay for it? He can't sleep in the room with me. Mm-hmm. Like it happens more than the average person understands how these contracts work. So if they're treating fighters good, they're going to get more fighters to come over there. People want to be treated a certain kind of way.
Brad, something you said made me think about a couple minutes ago with the managers taking the percentages and whatnot, and them not being wrong or right, whatever. It depends on the circumstances and what they're investing. With a Zuffa contract, do the fighters necessarily need a manager? Because now your contract numbers are pretty much non-negotiable, right? There's a cap you're going to get for certain kind of fights, and there's no more. Like with boxing contracts, promotional contracts, I know you've dealt with this because you've had champions. There's minimums. There's minimums for title defenses, but especially for title defenses, those minimums go up a whole lot if the defense you're making is against a big name fighter. It becomes the minimum becomes highest for title defenses, but now it can go up way higher if you're defending a title, or if you're unifying, or if your fight is on pay-per-view, or if your fight is a main event on a big network. There's so many other stipulations that can make that minimum go up super high in a title defense, and that's up to the manager really to try to negotiate those terms when it gets to that point in your career. With a Zuffa contract, the ceiling is the ceiling, right? You're going to get pretty good money for your title defenses from what I hear, but that's it. There's no going above it depending on whether the opponent is a huge name or not. So
you're also not getting sponsors to put on your trunks.
Yeah, you're not getting sponsors and whatnot. So there's basically, is the quote unquote, manager of old going to sort of become obsolete? Because what are you paying a guy like that for at that point, right? I mean, if these guys, especially if these guys sign you out of the amateurs.
I want to say this in full transparency, Paulie. I've never seen a Zuffa contract, so I can't say that. But I'm going to say that if you don't need a manager, you're going to need somebody to look over the fine print of what you're signing and what's going on. Mm-hmm. Because
a lawyer.
I don't like a minimum is one thing, but I don't like the sound of a max.
Well, that's what they got.
That's a cap. Yeah,
that's what they got, Steve. Coach, Brad, that's what they got.
Okay, but let me just ask you this, Paulie. This is hypothetical, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say Paulie Malignaggi, who was the WBA 140-pound champion?
IBF 140, WBA 47.
Okay. And you won WBA against the English dude at 147, right?
Yeah, Ukrainian, yep.
Okay. Let's say you and Chris are both champions at 140. And I know you guys are buddies, but let's just say there's a unification fight put on the table. And let's just say it's going to be in Madison Square Garden or the Barclay. You guys are New York guys. And let's say you're going to sell this place out and, do what you do and wear your trunks and talk your shit, Paulie, and Chris is going to do what he do. And let's just say somebody said to you guys, no matter how many tickets you sell or how many pay-per-views you do, the most you're going to get is $2 million. How would that sit with you?
I wouldn't sit well at all. But
I'm an earner and I know it. So,
but that's where there's pros and cons to every situation, right? We were just talking about Coach Garcia. The middle class for the Zuffa contracts is amazing. They're getting $50,000 bonuses for 6 rounders. We were just told if you get fight of the night. So if you're a middle class fighter where you're getting those mid-tier purses, all of a sudden these numbers jump for you at the middle tier. But there's caps at the highest level. There's caps. There's maximums. So and again, this is by word of mouth. But the numbers add up to me because I can remember they matched another story. And the numbers were $600,000 max, which was also coincidentally the max Francis Ngannou we were told had ever made before fighting Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. So that number 600,000 seems to be a sticking point for the Zuffa contracts because it was something I heard last year when Ngannou was fighting those guys. He hadn't made more than 600,000 prior to those boxing matches. And then all of a sudden, the same exact number started infiltrating into the rumor mill. The maximum for the Zuffa contracts was also $600,000 for title defenses. Now, could be right, could be wrong. Obviously, there's been situations like where they sign Conor Benn to some kind of Super Bowl deal where 1 or 2 fight deals, championship fighters may jump into a different bracket. Hollywood style fighters may jump into a different bracket, but within your league, that's what we're hearing. So yeah, of course, that's where it gets a little complicated. It's nice until it's not nice, but at that point, do you owe loyalty to the team that brought you there? But now you sign that contract.
But it's like when a small promoter gets a guy early in his career and he doesn't know any better, and you're locked in. Happened to me. It happened to you.
To answer, I'm going to say yes. You're still going to need a manager. I'm going to say yes because nobody thrives to be middle class. Nobody thrives to be mediocre, even though a lot of guys do fall into that.
You're right, Brad. But when you're poverty level, middle class looks great, especially when it's a nice middle class. So that's how you sucker guys in.
If you lower the level, so more of people are in poverty, middle class is starting to look really good, and the elites are like perfect.
It does, but if you put a cap on what a guy can make, I'm going to guess, and I'm going to answer the question and say you're going to need a manager because some of this stuff has to be flexible. You have to have some discretion with it, and you kind of build the case law. Somebody somewhere is going to say, how did Conor Benn sign for $15 million and I'm better than him and I'm making $600,000? That's going to happen, and you're going to need a mouthpiece to represent that. And you're going to need a mouthpiece to articulate why you deserve more. I'm just answering your question. I have literally nothing against Zuffa Boxing. I never even seen it.
These are just talking points.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this
and curiosity points and
for hours.
And we always invite people who are more in the know on the show to enlighten us more. For those,
I don't know if you can pull that off with a certain level of talent, Paulie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's a certain kind of kid that's good enough to say, "Wait a minute, no way, I'm gonna be a pound for pound guy. I can't do that. You can't. You're not going to get me with that." And once you open up Pandora's box and you sign a guy like Conor Benn, who is A+ in the marketability side, but his actual physical ability may be a B. I don't know if you can go back on that. So I think that Zuffa put some things in place that they may have to be flexible with later down the line.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you one example, and then we'll move on from this. That way before Zuffa, Demetrius Andrade was can't miss a plus product. I'm sure you remember him in the amateurs as well, right, Brad? Could have signed with anybody he wanted to, but because he got a $300,000 signing bonus, he signed with Joe DeGuardia and Artie Palullo to turn pro. Because that $300,000 signing bonus to him was like God sent, right? Mm-hmm. Because he'd never seen money like that before. Blew away his entire career because of it. Because
I was going to say, he didn't see it again for a long time.
Yeah, couldn't get a fight because now he had no connections. He was way too good for the class he was being put in, and nobody else's stars were going to fight him. And he didn't belong to a star level type promoter, no pun intended, because he couldn't get any dates, and so therefore he was basically axed out of the entire system. A kid coming from nothing. These contracts look good. You look at inflation and whatnot from 2008 when Demetrius turned pro. Now 2026, we went from 300,000 to 600,000 maximum.
This is a story as old as time. This is when Don King brings you in his office, opens up the shiny
suitcase,
briefcase, and there's 50 grand. 50 grand looks really nice. 100
in
grand
cash,
looks really nice. In cash, looks really nice. Sign here.
Guys, you're right. It does look good. Some guys are going to go for it, and some guys are going to say, you know what?
The credit card means the same thing. Black card.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the guy. It depends on what he has going on, and it depends on his people around him. But I'm going to say you're still going to need a manager because Zuffa is too early in his existence for us to know how these things are going to be honored, how these things are going to be handled. They're too early in their existence. So I think you still need a manager to look over that stuff.
Yeah, I
me
think
personally.
I agree with that. But I want to get this one more question, and while we got you, Brad, before we let you go, because this is a really interesting one and something that we actually spoke about earlier. You were talking about Usyk as a heavyweight with his height and his reach and whatever. Where does he fall historically? Alexander Usyk in the heavyweight division historically. Where does he fall?
I say firmly within the top 20, and we have to forensically look at each of the guys in the top 10. I think he's overall a great fighter. He's top 2 ever at Cruiserweight. One of the best fighters of this century. I think I consider him an all-time great, and I don't throw that around very loosely. And what I mean by all-time great was he would ascend in any era against anybody. I don't think he will retire undefeated in any era, but he will be okay in any era. A lot of guys.
But Brad, you got him top 20?
I think he's firmly within the top 20.
Brad, I rarely disagree with you, but no, man. Prior to 1990, the Soviets weren't even turning pro, so you got to look. You still have to look forensically at anybody who fought before 1990. They weren't fighting half of the world, and a half of the world that had some very good fighters. They were dominating the Olympics and so on and so forth. You know, heavyweights from Cuba, heavyweights from Soviet Union. Nobody prior to 1990 ever saw those guys in the pros, and those were good fighters because they were dominating the Olympics.
Paulie, I agree with that, but I don't know how you quantify it. Because a lot of the best Stevenson and Felix Savon, they couldn't turn pro either.
That's what I'm saying. You couldn't turn pro either. But for example, there's a Soviet guy who knocked out Teofilo twice. You know, and never fought in the Olympics because he kept having cut problems. So there's guys you don't even know about back then. I think his name was Grociev or something. Go ahead.
We only can judge on the field that they had to compete against.
Yeah,
I mean,
but there's a field that we don't know it even existed, but we know that they were.
That's where the thought experiment comes in because we don't know, and that's the whole idea of matching up guys from different eras. You can't know. You got to just do it in your mind.
Because Usyk prior to 1990, he still can't fight those guys. You know, he can't fight them now because he's in a different era. But if Usyk is around prior to 1990, he still can't fight those guys because he's from Ukraine and he'd be in the Soviet Union and he wouldn't be allowed to turn pro and nobody would ever see him. So he wouldn't be able to fight those guys now and he wouldn't be able to fight those guys then.
So where do you have Usyk?
I don't know, man. You know, it's a thought experiment. Top 20 is a little bit harsh, I think, but it's a good thought experiment. But like even as we're talking about it, it's a discussion point because the point I just made is something I hadn't thought of either. These are imaginary fights, okay? Because you can never have Usyk fighting your Alis of the world and your Fraziers and your Mike Tysons in their prime of the world now. But if he was around back then, I say, because some guys you say, oh, what if he was around back then? If Usyk was around back then, the problem is he still couldn't fight those guys because he'd be in the USSR and nobody would ever see him in the pros.
Okay, but he's not. So you tell me where you have, because when I say top 20, I'm talking between 11 and 20. I'm not saying he's number 20. I like to give him a fair range.
I think he probably beats. I think you got to put him in with the guy. Top 3. I think it's Ali, Lennox, and Usyk.
Brad, real quick, though, I don't want to cut you off. Before you answer that, where do you, when you do rankings, and I want to ask you the same thing, Chad, when you do rankings, we got to get all on the same page that we're talking about in the same context. When you do rankings and pound for pound and these theoretical thought experiments of matching up guys from different eras and different weight classes, how do you see it? Do you look at it in terms of strictly who kicks whose ass, or do you look at it like accomplishments, how they did it, when they did it, the era, and do you compare it across the boards like that? Or is like, we have AI, we put them in a ring, they fight, who wins?
I'm going to tell you how I look at it. That's a great question. Competition face, competition miss, accomplishments, the eyeball test, and who would beat who if everybody were in the same.
Even competition, Brad, because now you're making me think of somebody I didn't mention. Larry Holmes in his prime, man. Styles matter. Maybe Larry gives Usyk more problems than somebody else who you might think might beat Usyk. You know, Larry in his prime is a difficult style for an Usyk style if you literally compare styles against one another, right? So
I rate Larry Holmes a little bit higher than Usyk. Paulie.
Yeah, I got Larry top 5.
No, but for me, like I mentioned Lennox and Ali, and I'm like, okay, I think those would be tough fights
Lennox,
for Usyk.
Ali,
and you know he would be in them. But I actually think now that I'm thinking about it, stylistic styles themselves, Larry might be the toughest fight for Usyk. Like stylistically, you know, and again, that's not to say he wins or loses.
Prime Ali is like unbeatable, basically.
Prime Ali almost got knocked out by Henry Cooper, though, man. He was still coming into his own. Amazing ability, but he still had to settle into the pros the way he needed to.
Let me tell you something about Usyk, guys, that you probably won't agree with, but I'm firm on this. I think Usyk secretly struggles with the smaller guys more than the bigger guys.
Yeah,
it's a good point. I mean, it's
which is why I said Ali. He's a smaller guy with really athletic and long.
Does not deal. I think that because he's so physically tough, and because of the way he fights, he would rather fight a bigger guy. His toughest career fight was against Maris Bradis. He barely won that fight.
Yep, just spoke
on that. All look at it together.
But Bradis at 39 is giving Opetaia his toughest fight of his career still. Yeah. You know,
Bradis is good. Bradis is really good.
He is, but he's still a 200-pound man, which is my point. He can close the gap a little differently. Derek Chisora gave Usyk his toughest fight in heavyweight. How crazy is that? Because he was able to get up underneath of him, and he wasn't trying to hit him with the perfect shot. He was just letting his hands go.
You know what would have been a good fight for us to kind of gauge this? Usyk and David Haye would have been a good fight.
Smaller guy, explosive.
Yeah. Would have been something to gauge.
Athletic.
Something to gauge a little bit better. We're never going to get all the answers, I guess.
No.
I think really highly at Usyk, but top 3 right now, to me, is pushing it a little bit. I think his resume needs a little bit more meat on his bones, to be honest with you. For top 3, Lennox and Ali cleared out whole eras of guys. And Ali, 2 eras, the 60s and the 70s, which is probably one of the reasons why he had the health issues later, but that's a story for another day. He cleared out 2 eras. I don't put Usyk quite there yet.
Well, Ali is a guy who
competition is solid, but man, those other guys, man, they ran through grenades, man. You know, Holyfield, the competition that Holyfield and Lewis had to fight in the 90s is just.
But there's no Soviets. There's no Soviets there. They're just turning pro.
But nobody that's a hypothetical thing.
But you know they're gonna produce good fighters because once they started coming out, they were very good.
Okay, I got a question for you then, Paulie. Usyk hasn't fought any great Soviet fighters at heavyweight.
I mean,
not a heavyweight.
Not a heavyweight. There is.
Gassiev was.
I mean, there's this guy Jalalov who is coming around now. There's this guy Jalalov who's coming around now. The problem with Soviets is they're easily accessible to throw out. You know, like you can avoid them. I don't know if there's anybody right now. Jalalov's coming out. Nobody even mentions him.
I like Jalolov, but he's not beating Usyk.
No, I'm not saying him. What I'm saying is there's a lot of guys from that part of the world that people pretend they don't even exist.
I think listen. They're historically the Soviets are great, but I think you put them too high on us. Like the unbeatable thing. Look at
no, it's not about unbeatable. It's about you can avoid them and nobody even complains. You know what I mean? Like the guys get. How many of these guys
avoid them in the amateurs. He was fighting everybody.
No, well, yeah, he dominated everybody in the amateurs. But then going back
so
to
the guy just dominates. That's just what he does.
But he got dropped by Bitterbeer.
Okay,
I'm not
people get dropped. You mentioned Ali getting dropped. You know, like.
Paulie, I'm not disagreeing with you, but if you're going to bring them up,
yeah,
tell me great Soviets in this era that Usyk hasn't had a chance to fight. I can't name one.
Well, in the cruiserweight division, not in the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
in the cruiserweight division.
Yeah, Gassiev
was, and also
that was cruiserweight. I'm talking about heavyweight.
Right? No, we don't have heavyweight. We don't really have. There's not really those guys.
Yeah,
just like Holyfield and Lewis didn't have to fight any of them. Yeah. Usyk didn't either. He's made all the marbles.
But they weren't around in his era then. Yeah.
I mean, we can also say for almost absolute certainty that the Soviets were not clean.
You know what?
They were not clean athletes.
You know what? I'll tell you. Well, neither were the Western guys a lot of times. Well, let me tell you something. Klitschko would have been tough for Usyk too.
Absolutely.
Speaking, you know, now that you bring it up,
Brett, when you said
Klitschko's stylistically very difficult.
When you said that Ali took out two generations, I thought about the same thing. I was like, if Usyk had beaten Klitschko, then you have a real case for him being.
Oh, but it would have been an old Klitschko. It
doesn't matter.
No, but Klitschko, I'd say, you know what? Klitschko does beat Usyk. Klitschko is a natural super heavy, sharp, powerful. Yeah. Klitschko, yeah.
Not saying which one, Vladimir.
Vladimir. Vitaly, I think, is too awkward. He's tough, but he's not good enough. I don't think Vitaly's good enough. He's awkward, but he's tough. He's not good enough.
Vitaly was an SOB, man. He was tough.
You guys are going to disagree with me, but I always think Vitaly was the better fighter.
He might, stylistically, depending. You know what I mean? Like, he's more durable.
Yeah.
But I don't think that
too.
matters against Usyk because Usyk's durable, too.
Yeah.
I think with
better chin.
I get it.
Better
but Usyk,
chin,
he's not, he
durable.
wouldn't be able to box with Usyk, though.
Way
He wouldn't.
rougher.
While Vladimir will be able to box with Usyk. Vladimir,
But you
with
don't
that
think
height
Vitaly
and
could
big
make it
right
super
hand.
rough on him and physical?
Nah, yeah, but Usyk deals with that.
Tyson
Fury's super rough and physical.
Lewis.
Tyson Fury's
like right out.
Yeah, but Tyson Fury's rough and physical. I think Vladimir with that finesse, like big right hand
Tyson
jab.
Fury had success with Usyk. Those are good fights.
You know the problem that I have with Vladimir, Paulie? This is just me personally. Vladimir lost to guys, and I know this can happen because of heavyweight boxing, right? But I don't rate him as high.
No, early on he lost to guys he shouldn't have lost to. I agree,
but
he turned the corner. He turned. They
had to figure something out with him.
He wasn't some green kid who just like woke up and started boxing. He was a gold medalist.
No, you're right, Brett.
26, 7 and
Brett, you're right. You're right, but I can remember being in Atlantic City when he beat St. Peter after being dropped 3 times and getting up each time and boxing his shoes off. I remember leaving Atlantic City that night and telling my best friend, this guy turned the corner tonight. He's going to be very, very hard to beat after tonight. He turned the corner mentally by doing that. And he didn't lose for over a decade.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about a guy like Anthony Joshua when he got off the canvas with Klitschko.
No,
and you look at him like, well, he turned the corner tonight.
I
But
did, and I was
he
wrong.
turned the corner the wrong way.
I was wrong.
Way.
And you know who else I was wrong about? I remember Andre Berto and Victor Ortiz. Victor Ortiz getting up off the canvas and beating Andre Berto and saying he turned the corner, and he didn't turn the corner either.
Ryan Garcia, too, against Luke Campbell.
Yes. But that night with Klitschko, I was right. All right, let me be right one time.
I don't see a big difference in Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko. Stop me when I'm wrong. I don't see a huge difference.
No, I think Klitschko's a lot better. I like Anthony. I really like Anthony.
I thought Joshua was going to be the man after he died, the way he beat Klitschko.
I rate Anthony very high. I really like Anthony.
This is all I needed. I was ultra shocked with the Ruiz fight because after seeing the Klitschko thing, I was like, how'd this guy just go away so easily against Ruiz? It blew me away because he got up roaring after Klitschko knocked him down. And usually when Klitschko knocks you down, you got a big problem.
Yeah.
And then instead, he comes in with Ruiz. He goes down, and I'm like, what the hell happened to this guy? He's gone.
Klitschko is such a good finisher.
Ranting. You guys want rants? I got rants.
I'm not saying that Vladimir is not better than Joshua, but it's not. They're not miles apart. They're very and listen. Vladimir wasn't shot when Joshua beat him.
No,
Vladimir, but he'd been beaten by Fury.
Yeah, but he'd
been dominated by Fury.
That fight
Vladimir runs out of gas a little bit. He's not the most durable guy in the world. He's a little squeamish. He doesn't respond to adversity as much as you would like for the great heavyweight champions.
But he got up 3 times against Peter. He turned that corner. He even got up against Joshua, actually.
Yeah, he did.
Paulie, we don't agree to disagree, but I think Vitaly, listen.
No, Vitaly's tougher. No, Vitaly's tougher. But I just don't think he was as good.
And I'll tell you why. When Vladimir needed the Corey Sanders fight avenged, he didn't go avenge it. He called his brother to do it for him.
Hey, big bro gotta handle it sometimes. Brad,
you gotta go back. You gotta go up the family tree sometimes.
Brad, we would be talking with you for hours about this stuff. This is the kind of stuff that engages. We hope everybody at home loves this discussion as well, right, champ?
Yeah, absolutely. Brad, thank you so much for your insights. Always great to have the mailbag. It's our favorite portion of the show. Thanks so much. But listen, guys, thank you for tuning in. Real quick, though, I want to give a big shout out and congratulations to 2 of the writers for Boxing Scene Today, Matt Christie and Dixon both got big awards over in the UK.
Boxing awards in the UK.
Boxing awards in the UK for their involvement in the sport and everything they've given to us.
Contributions, we'll call
Contributions, sure, that's a good way to put it. But thanks so much, guys. You guys are great. You're always giving us the right info and stuff to talk about, and some of the good guys on this side of the media. Which I'm not a huge media fan, although I am a media guy now. But those 2 are good ones.
We're like kind of half media guys.
Yeah, man.
Guys, like, subscribe, leave your comments. All right, let us know what you think.
Thanks for joining us in today
tomorrow
on Boxing Scene Today. Check us out tomorrow.
Saturday, March 21st, ProBox TV invades the NOS Event Center as Lester Martinez and Emmanuel Ali battle for the WBC World Super Middleweight title. Palmdale's Joshua Kevin Anton battles the Uzbeki Punisher. LA is in the house as Anthony Too Quick Cuba defends home turf against Brooklyn's Wesley Farrell, while Sam Contreras takes on Cesar Cantu.